nagbabalik po ang Republika. Kausap pa rin natin si Nicole Laurel Asensio at si Jose Laurel Delgado. Bago po natin pagpapatuloy ang ating pakikipanayam sa kanila, ay meron po nating konting isang 15-minute documentary tungkol po sa United Nationalist Democratic Organization at ang naging taga-pangulo ng UNIDO na binuo ng halos 15 o 12 political parties. At ang naging external vice president po ng UNIDO sa hindi o lingid sa kaalaman ng ating mga manonood ay walang iba kung hindi ang naging brad ni Doy Laurel na si Ninoy Aquino. Kaya let's roll VTR for this.
Looking out into the crowd, it must have dawned on him how one milestone led to another and brought him to this moment. For he wrote later, "I seem to sense the coercive hand of destiny, making things happen, making things fall into place."
As I said a while ago, your nominations committee has received only one nominee for presidential standard bearer of the UNIDO. I therefore move to close the nomination and to declare unanimously the Honorable Salvador Laurel as the presidential standard bearer of UNIDO. Those who vote yes to this motion, please rise and give a standing ovation to the presidential nominee of the UNIDO. Mabuhay si Doy! Mabuhay si Doy!
Beloved freedom fighters, beloved countrymen, beloved members of the unswerving opposition, I ask you all to rise. I ask you all to rise and raise your right hand with me, and I ask you to swear with me on this hallowed day. Let us all swear together. We swear never again to allow anyone to perpetuate himself in power. We swear never again to allow the mutilation of our true Constitution. We swear never again to allow the mockery of democracy through rigged elections and plebiscites. We swear never again to allow the suppression of human rights and the debasement of human dignity. We swear never again to allow the gagging of the press and the systematic brainwashing of the Filipino people by the sacred bones of our forebears. We swear never, never again to all this. Let us repeat. Let us repeat. Justice for all. Democracy or death. Freedom forever. Maraming salamat po.
Mabuhay si Laurel! Mabuhay si Laurel!
It mattered not to Doy Laurel that he was to be David against Marcos's Goliath. He had worked tirelessly to rally a fragmented opposition to victory in the 1984 legislative elections, snatching 59 seats from Marcos hardliners in the Batasang Pambansa. He remained resolute in his belief that change could only be attained through constitutional means.
Sana'y magkaisa tayong lahat sa labanan ito. Kung maaari, iwasan natin ang himagsikan. Kung maaari, iwasan natin ang paggamit ng dahas upang mabawi ang ating mga karapatan at kalayaan at upang maibangon ang ating puri bilang isang lahi.
Nung nagbitiw siya, si Doy Laurel nagbitiw sa interim Batasang Pambansa, nakita ko na, sabi ko, ito ay desidido. Ito ang talagang determinado. So we definitely considered him as the leader of the active opposition. Because the other part of our opposition wanted to boycott the elections, boycott all the action. They thought passive resistance would be more effective than active resistance. Doy represented the active resistance group.
That these are the last days of the Marcos dictatorship. The people have a right to change the government when the government betrays the people. A government that denies justice to the people is committing the gravest crime against the people. Kung hindi tayo kikilos, sinong kikilos? Kung hindi tayo sisigaw, sinong sisigaw? Kung hindi tayo lalaban, sinong lalaban? At kung hindi ngayon, kailan pa?
Lahat kami sumunod sa kanya nung inoorganisa niya ang Unido sapagkat alam namin, yun ang kailangan talaga. Labanan ang diktadurya. Si Doy Laurel ang namuno sa lahat ng ito.
Ang diktadura ni Marcos! Sabi mga kababayan, let us never forget the words of Mabini, who said that we must love our country because this is the only country that God has given us. What will I do with Mr. Marcos' family? We are not fighting for blood. We are fighting for the restoration of freedom and democracy. We will give Mr. Marcos what he has not given the Filipino people, justice and due process of law.
5 months later, on the 3rd of November, Marcos bowed to foreign pressure and announced via American television that he was conceding to the opposition's call. Snap elections would be held on February the 7th, 1986.
Mr. Marcos has announced that there will be an election. Our answer to him is that we will fight him in that election.
The opposition, however, remained divided. Some believed that Cory Aquino was the right candidate to defeat Marcos. But notwithstanding the clamor urging her to run, Cory kept her silence. In his diary, Doy had written, these were the first of many broken promises. 2 days after Marcos announced the snap election, Cory announced she was willing to run for the presidency.
Manila says if the majority of the opposition choose Mrs. Cory Aquino as the presidential candidate, would you be willing to sublimate your desires for running as president of this country?
You know, an opposition at this time, these are very critical times, must be prepared to sacrifice and risk everything. In other words, you must be prepared to do anything for the people. So if you must be prepared to run for anything or not run at all.
Okay.
On top of that, you must be prepared to risk everything, including your own life, because these are very critical times. So answering your question, the decision of the united opposition will be respected. And if Cory Aquino or anybody else is the final choice of the entire united opposition, we will respect it. I will respect it. I just feel that somebody must provide the leadership.
In a meeting at the Puyat residence in Quezon City, Cory revealed she was only interested in removing Marcos from power and restoring democracy. She offered to appoint Doy as the prime minister and promised to step down after 2 years or so. Their agreement was put to writing. But Doy, believing he had better chances as the opposition's presidential bet, asked for more time to decide. Discernment came at a most crucial and painful junction in his political life. It was perhaps the hardest, most excruciating decision he would ever make. He asked himself, what would my father have done if he were in my place? The following day, Doy told Cory he would give way to her only if she ran under the Unido. She declined. Doy had no other choice but to run. In his statement before the press, Doy said, I can sacrifice myself. I can sacrifice the presidency, but I cannot sacrifice the people who have suffered so much and worked so hard all these years, risking life, liberty, even honor, to put up the political machine that is now capable of toppling the Marcos dictatorship. After consulting with her advisors, Cory changed her mind. She agreed to run under the Unido. A new energy invigorated the opposition.
In the interest of unity, which is the key to victory, victory which will dismantle the dictatorship and bring about the establishment of a truly just and democratic order, I wish to announce that late last night, I withdrew my certificate of candidacy for the presidency, and that, together with Cory here, we filed also last night our certificates of candidacy, both under the banner of Unido, she for the presidency of the Republic, and I for the vice presidency of the Republic.
And I now wish to take this opportunity to publicly express my deep gratitude to Doy Laurel, his family, and his supporters for the supreme act of selflessness and sacrifice that has made this dream a reality.
As the global village looked on, the fight for a return to democracy became a clash of symbols. It was as if God himself had intervened. Cory and Doy were swept to power in a spectacular popular uprising. Whether they won the 1986 snap elections or not, it did not matter. Everything had been superseded by the EDSA People Power Revolution.
Now, therefore, by virtue of the powers vested in me as President of the Republic of the Philippines and pursuant to the mandate of the Filipino people, I hereby appoint Salvador H. Laurel as Prime Minister Designate.
In all modesty, the solemn trust that has been vested in me at this historic and crucial hour.
Sadly, Cory's pre-election promises to Doy were forgotten. Faced with an entrenched Marcos faction in the National Assembly, she took a major gamble. She abolished the 1973 Constitution and government. As a consequence, the Supreme Court and all national and local positions, including that of Prime Minister, were abolished. Doy was never consulted nor allowed to participate in the process of establishing a revolutionary government. Despite the sacrifices he made for the country, he was tragically and systematically shut out. Doy Laurel, ever the consummate statesman, graciously abdicated his rightful place in history. No other moment defines him best than when he reminds those of us who must witness for him that though we are men, who we are is ultimately how we lived.
Men whom the lust for power does not kill. Men who possess opinions, Men who have honor. Men who will not lie. Men who can stand before a demagogue and damn their treacherous flatteries without winking. God give us such men, such honorable men, so we can follow them to the ends of the earth.
At yun po ang ating munting pag-aalay para po sa alaala ng Unido at ni Doy Laurel sa nalalapit na anibersaryo ng ating People Power EDSA Revolution. Tanungin ko lang si Nicole dito, how is history now being written? The way you read it and the way it is presented?
Well, in the educational systems, it's more internet-based.
Okay.
So the students have a lot more free will as to what they're going to research. However, well, I wouldn't know because I haven't observed very many grade school or high school classes. But they don't touch on the subject as much because even in my generation, when I was in grade school and high school,
Yes.
they never really talked about it. They would enlist the number of presidents and what years they served and what they were known for, but it was never really touched on. What happened? You know, how did it get to that point? Who were the people involved? So I'm not sure about the generation now, which is in grade school and high school now, but because it's internet-based, if the teachers don't mention it, then the students won't research it.
Jose?
Basically the same thing. She said everything I had to say.
Do you feel that there is a certain vacuum in history which has not been touched on, deliberately not written about? Or do you sense that even history itself was hijacked? Either one of you can speak on that.
Well, that's basically how history, works. It delves on either written documents for proof or from memory of the witnesses. So it's not just there are many periods in history that are left out precisely for those reasons.
You feel that there is a sense of injustice or that there is a lack of information to educate the new generation about the contributions and what really happened during the struggling years?
Yes, I do believe that. Sometimes it's not done intentionally. Sometimes it's just not spoken about because perhaps there's not enough time during the class lecture and they don't touch on it. Or it could be done intentionally because, as he said, history is written by the winners. And the winners will tell their story, and that's half of the story. And which half are we really listening to?
And which half usually is listened to, or are we getting? Which song, who are the lyrics writing the song for us?
It's usually the half that's in power, the half that was able to stay in power, the half that is in charge of, well, let's say in the educational system, like of appointing the curriculums or writing the syllabus. It's these things that are controlled by the individual who is sharing. So, also the educators, I believe they have a lot to do with it in preserving history.
In this narrative that we presented, did you get the sense that, your grandfather sacrificed a lot? Not just the family, but he put up the party. He got all these stalwarts from different political parties, Ninoy, Ambrosio Padilla, Aitona, and all the rest, Bicol Saro, Mindanao Alliance with Bono Adasa, and all the personalities. And he was able to gel all these together. And then, at the end of the day, why did he equivocate? Why do you think? Why? You said something very interesting that he was in the best position to have run for president. But why the sacrifice?
Well, there's one thing I learned from my mother, who I'm pretty sure learned it from him, which is check your motives before you do something. She always taught me this as a kid. Why are you doing this? Check your motives. And he had great cause. Papa Doy had great cause. He had great motives. But then, when you do this and you have great cause, you cannot also control the cause or the motive of the people around you.
Yes.
And it's only natural that not everybody will agree with you, especially if you have a great cause. It will usually mean you have greater responsibility and a greater force to reckon with. That's why you're trying to change things. So, no matter how great your motives are, sometimes you won't get them through, because not everybody will agree with you. And this is why we're talking about this now, because we're trying to sort of fill in the gap of what happened, talk about it openly, and try to, shed light on his story and history.
He had the right motive. He had the right cause. Who should have headed it?
I personally believe that the most eligible candidate should have been heading the show. I mean, from the beginning of the whole opposition, which was formed by him and a couple of other people, he basically had the guts and the protection to be able to campaign against Marcos during a time when everyone was afraid to. He also had the integrity, he had the knowledge, he had the pedigree.
Yes, of course.
He had basically all the tools to be able to take control of a country coming off of a 20-year dictatorship.
And he had good relations with Ninoy Aquino.
Yes, he did. They were very good friends, So there were a lot of things going for him, but there were also a lot of people who were not supporting him. For whatever reasons they may have had. Some may be selfish reasons, some may not. They may not just have the same beliefs as him. It does happen very many times in all industries, at all ages. I believe it happens.
Well, ito po ay isang munting pagkakataon na aming ginawa, isang programa na ito para po bahagyang makapagbigay ng iba namang pananaw upang mabuo po ang larawan sa nangyari nung kadiliman ng ating Republika. Kaya tayo nakikipag-usap sa bagong henerasyon upang makita naman at madama natin kung ano ang kanilang pananaw, kung ano ang kanilang ibig ipahiwatig sa atin. At sa pagkakataong ito ay para mayakap natin ang kabuuan ng ating kasaysayan bilang isang sambayanan. Nais po nating pasalamatan si Nicole Asensio at siyempre si Jose Delgado, parehong mga apo ni Doy Laurel. Wala na po tayong panahon, kaya ito po si Erik Espina. Palagi pong nagsasabi sa inyo, magmasid, makialam, higit sa lahat ay manindigan. Dahil wala pong nagmamahal sa Pilipino kung hindi ang Pilipino. Daghang salamat, maayong gabi kaninyong tanan.